Alrighty, so chapter 385 of the My Hero Academia manga came out a few days ago, and I'm finally getting around to making a video on it, so if you do enjoy, please subscribe, and let's get into it. So picking off from last week's chapter, which I had relatively mixed feelings on compared to some recent chapters, this one feels largely the same, honestly. I didn't love it, I also didn't hate it. It had a lot of good things, which I'll get into right now. First of all, I'm loving seeing Shinso in any capacity, as well as Kirishima right now. They're more so tagging along for the ride, as we find out that Gigantomachia actually resisted Shinso's brainwashing ever so slightly. As Deku had, this makes him the only other person to do so, and while he was still under Shinso's control, he was mumbling to himself about his master, that being All For One. And we find out he has a lot of resentment right now for All For One, since All For One obviously doesn't really care too much about him or ever go back to him like he says he will. He kind of just leaves him for dead half the time, metaphorically speaking, and probably literally if, it came to that. So this is showing how All For One's treatment of people, even his own colleagues like Gigantomachia, is coming back to bite him right now, as Gigantomachia doesn't even have to be controlled by Shinso in order to fight against All For One. He's just choosing to do so because of his rage against him. I think this was a really great development, and although it downplays Shinso's part in this a little bit, he still was the one to bring Gigantomachia to this battlefield with his brainwashing, so I feel like that's still relevant. And if need be, he could try to use his brainwashing again. Speaking of this, we get a cool little moment where All For One mentions that, oh, someone must have a brainwashing quirk, and he pretty much says that, oh, that's a villain's quirk or something I would use, so I think he's going to want to get his hands on that. I don't know if that's going to come to fruition at all. Shinso then goes on to say that while he could control people, he can't control what's in their hearts, again, leading to Gigantomachia and his whole confrontation with All For One right now. All of that was really great. We see a little more of Hawks, Tokoyami, and Mount Lady, and they're all still fighting against All For One here, as All For One's progressively getting younger as his physical body seems to be de-aging. They're still trying to hold him off, and I wonder how long this could last. I'm thinking this may actually just be the end of All For One, and it would be kind of symbolic that even someone like Gigantomachia, who is so loyal to him, is one of the last things it takes to take him down. Kind of like karma for how All For One treated him, as well as everyone else, and they're all coming together here, and all these different people banding together. I think that could be cool, especially with Gigantomachia here, if this is the end for All For One, but I still don't know what All Might's going to be doing. We saw him with that briefcase a few chapters ago and haven't gotten an update. I thought that he would be the one to maybe finish off All For One here and maybe sacrifice himself. I did a whole video on that. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see. The rest of the chapter is kind of dull, honestly, and this is the part that makes me feel a little mixed. While thematically it makes a lot of sense, showing this journalist who is kind of trashing on Endeavor and other heroes a few arcs previously, coming back to cover the current story, showing how the heroes are still fighting for people, and saying it's like her duty to report on this since she did the opposite previously. Since they are still fighting for them, she's gonna do her part as a journalist. And we also have a reporter who interviewed Deku a bunch of times, which we see, and those were the people in the helicopters from like that cliffhanger. So that's a pretty disappointing answer to who was in the helicopters. Maybe was expecting more, but nonetheless, thematically it does make sense. So yeah, overall it's a pretty cool chapter. I'm liking a lot of the things that are happening right now in the manga. I just feel like some of it could have been fleshed out a little more, as I spoke about last week. Nonetheless, though, I think it does make thematic sense for Gigantomachia kind of coming full circle here and being one of the things that takes All For One down, since All For One treated him so terribly, and All For One's like most loyal person being one of the final straws to break the camel's back, that being ending All For One, would be really cool. So yeah, that's it for this chapter. If you did enjoy, please subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one.